Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah! Show number 2538. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah!, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. I'm founder Mark Green, and I've handed the keys to this car over to Ginger Baker Rust, who's a lifelong enthusiast. Ginger's here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, and buckle up and get ready for a fun ride here on Cars Yeah!
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah! As we are wrapping up Women's History Month, today we are coming from the beautiful country of Sweden with a multi-talented racer and champion on both 2 and 4 wheels, whose name is Ida Zetterström. Hello, Ida. Welcome to Cars Yeah! Do you have it in gear, and are you ready to stomp that loud pedal?
Hey, yes, thanks for having me. Oh, I'm so ready. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, it's great having you. You and I have been trying to do this for a long time. Ida, please share something about yourself that most people may not know.
Good question. Well, before I got into all this racing, or honestly, I've been in racing my whole life, but before I started doing this professionally, I worked as an electrician. That's basically my education. That's what I went to school for, and that's what I worked for 9 years in that industry. I started out as an electrician and then worked in management for some years. But yeah, not a lot of people may know that.
I had no idea that you were an electrician. We talked a lot and we know each other for a long time, and I didn't even know that.
Yep. That's where I come from.
Oh, that's great. Well, hey, folks, let's take a moment to tell our listeners a little bit more about you. Ida is a 2-time Super Street Bike champion, winning the 2019 and 2020 championship. In addition, she was the 2023 European champion in the FIA Top Fuel drag racing category, while setting the European ET record of 3.77 and the speed record of 321.1 miles per hour, along with winning all but one race in the 2023 season. Before finding her way to compete in the U.S. in 2024 at the top level of drag racing as an NHRA Top Fuel dragster pilot, mastering an 11,000 horsepower dragster at 330 miles per hour in only 1,000 foot, she grew up at the racetracks in Europe, starting out in junior dragsters at the age of 8. Ida's journey to the NHRA Top Fuel ranks has been marked by relentless work, dedication, and an unyielding passion for the sport. Ida quickly let the world know that she lived up to the hype as she made her NHRA Top Fuel debut with JCM Racing in 2024. So let's take a ride down the strip with Ida. Let's go a little deeper down the drag strip and let's share with us more about your journey into the motorsports world. How did all this get started?
Oh, I grew up at the racetrack. I've been at the track since I was 3 weeks old with my parents, always being involved in racing in one way or the other. And I fell in love with the sport at a very early age. I can't really pinpoint when it happened, but I started racing when I was 8. My dad built me my first junior dragster, and we went racing. And basically, from the first time being in the car, I couldn't think of wanting to do anything else. I dabbled in other sports. I did gymnastics for many years. I also tried some other motorsports, but nothing really stuck the way that the drag racing did. So I'll say that's where it all started.
Well, so I know that you ran 2 wheels. So was that first, or were the dragsters first? Were the motorcycles first?
Yeah, I started with the dragsters and junior dragster at the age of 8. And when I was 16, I got my license in supercomp dragsters. So that felt like, the natural step up, racing dragsters and going up to supercomp at 16. And then I actually had a few years where I wasn't actively racing because I basically didn't have the funding to do it. I didn't have the money to go and buy a race car. Obviously, when I raced junior dragsters, it was my parents that funded that racing. It's not like you can buy your own race car when you're 8 years old. But by the time I turned 16 and got out of junior racing, my parents obviously told me that I had to find money to go racing, and that's hard when you're in school and you don't really have that to fall back on or that type of knowledge on sponsors yet. So I had a few years when I went to school and I started working and kind of built up some money to be able to go racing eventually. And when I went back to the track and actively started racing and compete again, it was on a bike, which was not something that was planned from the beginning. My boyfriend raced bikes, and I was involved with him and with his racing for a while. And helped him out at the track and got to learn more about the classes. And there was this class in Europe that was so fast growing, super street bike. And it was just a very cool class. It was extremely action packed, very, very competitive. We could see, 35, 38 bikes enter for a race in the European Championship. And it was a class that was just very, very healthy. In my opinion, it was a great combination of driver and teamwork, because you had to have a really well-built bike with a combination that could actually run in the 6-second range down the drag strip. And I mean, we're talking no wheelie bar bike, 750 horsepower on a street tire. So it's a lot of bike to take down the drag strip. And that's where being able to build a bike and have a good combination was so important, but also having a great tuner that were able to kind of max everything out of the bike, because obviously having a lot of horsepower doesn't always get you down track, especially when you're racing on a street tire. So it was very important to have the right people around you. But then as a driver, it was also very, very important to be able to actually handle that bike and be able to run what you needed to run to win in this class. It was extremely hard. And I think that's what made me fall in love with that sport. Or that class. From a driver's standpoint, it was incredibly exciting. And also from the fans. I mean, watching this class, it was one of the most action-packed classes. A lot of people talk about super street bike in Europe being like pro mod, if you're comparing it to a car class, so to say. A lot of power, a lot of action, and just a very, very tight field. And that's what I felt too. And starting out in that class, it might not have been the the smartest or the easiest class to get into when you're starting to race a bike. I had no bike experience before that. So we definitely had our hands full, and it was definitely a challenge, but we said we wanted to give it 3 years, and in 3 years we wanted to be really competitive. And on the third year, we won our first championship. So that went according to plan.
Oh, that's great. Now, were you racing super bikes and dragsters at the same time, or did you transition from one to the other?
No, it was just the bikes. Yeah. So first of all, I did not have money to raise more than that. That was absolutely maxed out on my budget with both my own money and sponsors. In Europe, it's a pro class. So over here in US, the only pro class we have on the bike side in NHRA is pro stock bike. But over in Europe, the bike classes are actually a little bigger. So we have 3 bike classes that are, or 4 bike classes actually, that are pro classes over in Europe. So it was a very high level class. And it is not a cheap class to race, but it's a lot cheaper than racing on 4 wheels, so to say. So that was one of the main reasons too, where that kind of was more in range of what I could do than to, for example, go into racing pro mods or something similar.
So tell me a little bit more about your transition from bikes into Top Fuel over in Europe.
Yeah, so basically, Top Fuel had always been my dream and my goal. Even, while we raced the bike classes and we had a lot of success there, that dream never went away. We always continued to work towards that. And even with the sponsors and the partners that I had with me while racing the bikes, they all kind of knew that Top Fuel was eventually the goal we wanted to go to. And they all supported us in that. And in 2021, we thought we were going to be able to run for a European Championship on the bike. But in Europe, it was still so COVID affected that everything was basically closed down. You could not do that in Europe yet. I had a plan basically to run for, when we won the championship in 19, I was planning to run 3 more years on the bike and then try and make my transition to Top Fuel. But that's also when COVID hit, like in the beginning of 2020. So my time frame kind of changed. I didn't want to wait too long to start giving Top Fuel the fair chance that I wanted to do. So I kind of talked to all my sponsors during the COVID years and let them know that, yes, it was COVID, we could not change the championship, but what we could do is we could go to UK and we could stay there in quarantine for like 2 weeks, and then we could start with our Top Fuel license, because they actually raced actively in UK at that time. So all of our sponsors agreed that it was time to do it, and that they wanted to back me on that. And I started talking with the teams to be able to put all this in place. And that started already in the beginning of 2020 to kind of work on that, when we noticed that this COVID thing that we thought would be over in a little short while was actually going to be longer than we expected. And by the time the end of 2020 came around, we knew that we were going to license. We just didn't know when, because obviously a lot of it depended on when we would actually be able to get into UK and when they would let us drive. So in 2021, we did not want to announce anything. I was terrified of announcing that, hey, I'm going to license in a Top Fuel car, and then it would take 2 years more before it would happen, because we literally did not know with the time frame at that point. And we had several dates lined up that got canceled last minute because new rules and regulations of getting into UK and the traveling during COVID. But at the summer of 2021, we did go to UK. We were able to stay there for about 2 weeks, do our quarantine, do all the tests needed for starting our license, and then starting with the Runefjeld and RF Motorsport to get our Top Fuel license. And that was the start of the whole Top Fuel journey, basically. We were able to get the license in 2021 and run one race. It was called not the European finals, because obviously we couldn't have cars from all of Europe. So we only had, I think, 3 or 4 cars on that event. So it was definitely a small event, but it was really fun to be able to run that and get a start in it. And then the season after, it actually did open up more, and we were able to run our first full season in Top Fuel in 2022.
Yeah, I think that's about the time that you and I actually started talking, was when you were starting your full season.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
And I know even then, when we were talking, you already had your sights set to come to the U.S. after a couple of years to try to run over here. And tell me a little bit about that transition and when all that took place.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely something that I worked on basically from right when I got my license in Europe. I knew that I eventually wanted to find my way to NHRA. I didn't know exactly how it would look, and even though I wanted to do it as soon as possible, I tried to not be stressed about it. There's fantastic racing in Europe, and I wanted to really become the best version of a driver that I could be before coming over here to US. And obviously having a championship in your baggage, I felt like that helped me obviously going into the season over here in NHRA. I think it also proved that what we had done, we were the first team to ever run in the 370 second range over in Europe. We reset our own European record in ET several times, and we had the European record in speed. And the year we won in 2023, we won all but one races, which I feel like really showed that we had what it took, to reach the next level, which the next level is obviously NHRA. NHRA is the biggest stage of drag racing in the world, and especially for Top Fuel. So I had been working on that for several years. I had some opportunities to come over and race. I race here and there here in US, but it had never felt like it was the right fit for me. For me, it was very important that I would be able to come over and run in a car that would be representative to what I could do and with the correct team around me. Because obviously in Europe, I had a championship winning team, and we had a car that could really perform. And I feel like I had the chance to really show what I could do. And a few of the teams that I had talked to over here were obviously lower budget teams, which is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But some of the teams, they hadn't even ran the numbers that we ran in Europe over here in US. And that might mean that you struggle to actually qualify coming over here. And it's so much more expensive to run in US than it is in Europe. And I have great partners around me that have stood by us during our seasons in Europe. And I wanted to bring them with me over to US, but I couldn't make it feel right to ask for, bigger sponsorship deals for coming over to US, and knowing that we might not qualify, or we might not even run as strong as we did in Europe, but it would actually be more money for them to invest in a situation like that. It just didn't, as much as I wanted to go over and race right away, feel right as the whole package. And that's something that was very important to me. I didn't want to burn any bridges or do anything wrong coming over here just because I was eager to get over and just looking at what I wanted. So it took me a few years to try and find that right fit. And by the time I came over here, and by the end of 2023, I actually had two offers on the table with 2 great teams out here. And I basically went with my gut, with the one that I felt like this is someone who wants to invest in the future, and they want to see me win my first championship out here in NHRA, and that was Joe Maynard and JCM Racing. And in 2023, end of 2023 at PRI show, we announced the fact that I was coming over here, starting a part-time schedule in 2024, and then working towards running a full-time schedule with JCM out here. And that's exactly what we did. We moved over here to US in the beginning of 2024, and we started building my team, which is obviously not something that you do in a hand's turn. It's something that takes a long time. You know, getting trailers and getting parts and building a car, it takes a long time, but I'm very, very happy I was able to come over here and be part of all of those steps and see obviously all the work that went into this, but also getting closer with the team that I was working with. And by the time we could hit the track, which was planned for Brainerd in August, so we ran the last 8 races in a row in the NHRA series, I felt like we really knew that we had a package that could deliver on track. And obviously coming in at the end of a season where all the other teams have had 12 races to basically get their shit together and find their stride, it's a hard time to come in. For a driver, it's hard. For a team overall, it's hard. Like, we were basically doing our testing when everybody else was chasing a championship. But trying to look past that and see what we did, we did run with the best teams in the world. I mean, we qualified right with the top 13 teams, which were the teams that ran full time, and they had so much more data and so much more runs on their cars than we did. And every track that I ran at was a new track for me that I had never been to before, which obviously means that for us, so to say. But I feel like coming into this season now, we still do not have a full season. We were hoping that 2025 would be our first full year, but it all comes down to funding. And right now I do not have I have great partners. I just do not have enough for it to cover a full season. So we have 10 races this year, a little more than last year, but as it looks right now, it's 10, and we're still chasing more funding and going to try and find those partners that will be with us for the long run and that will be part of our success. And, you know, hopefully our first championship win and chasing many more to come. So.
Absolutely. Well, and I want to talk a little bit about, you know, you and I have known each other now for several years, but I want the listeners to understand the difference of racing in Europe and racing in the US. Track prep is completely different.
Yeah.
Just getting parts in Europe it's extremely difficult. And a lot of times you guys have to run used parts because parts are very difficult to get and very expensive to get. You tell me a little bit about like the part situation and being able to do that, but also just the big differences between the US tracks and European tracks. And because again, I want listeners to understand that her time and her record over in Europe is incredible, compared to the US. And I don't want people to think any less of it because it's just a tad slower, because the track prep is completely different and it's so much harder to get speed over in Europe.
Yeah, you're very right. And honestly, I mean, when we're saying that the European record in ET is like a 377, a lot of the teams look at it and say, oh, well, you can go mid 36s over here in Europe. The thing is, though, that just like you're saying, it's completely different and it's a complete different playground. First of all, when we're talking budgets, I mean, you can run a full season in Europe for the same amount that you run basically one race over here in US. Like that's the difference that it is. When we run in Europe, it's very seldom that the teams have new parts. Mostly it is used parts that are sourced from the teams over here in US. A lot of the times the team owners, they come over here to US in our off season, and we basically buy the parts from the teams over here that have raced with them and decided that, hey, these are no longer parts that we run, but over in Europe, we still do. It can also be anything from blocks or heads or so on that needs repair. And the teams in Europe are so good at all of that because we have to be. You know, we don't have the opportunity to go and drop it off for someone else to fix it. Everybody there, we kind of need to fix our own stuff and make sure that we have what's needed for a season over there. So thinking about the fact that we usually have outdated stuff, I know a couple of years ago, I talked to one of the manufacturers over in US. I think it was about a new camshaft, and we talked about the camshaft we had today, and they started looking at it, and they're like, hey, this is a 5-year-old camshaft that was, you know, used in a John Force car before. And we said, yeah, I mean, it's running well for us, and that is what we're using right now. It's a different over there than it is over here. And also when you're looking at how we service things, I mean, over in US, You have so many more mechanics on each car, and you service the blower between every round. You check the rear end after every day. Over in Europe, we maybe check the rear end every off season, and we take the blower apart every off season, not every race, not every round. Like, that is something that's done in the off season when you have that time. That kind of puts into perspective too how we are not chasing small differences that they do over here. But a lot of the times when you look at a qualifying sheet, a 377 over here, still a good run.
Exactly.
Looking at how much energy and how the parts and the amount of money that goes into that operation compared to what we do in Europe, it amazes me. And then also when we look at the track prep, obviously in US the tracks are a little bit differently. I would say also that obviously they prep them a little bit differently, but the main thing is that they're prepped so much further down track. That's how I feel. Over in Europe, we don't have as much track prep after the 8 mile, which means that usually the cars tend to feel kind of loose at the top end. You tend to have to steer them more. And that was something when I came over here and the first couple of times when I ran down track and I realized that, man, I have a cylinder out down track. But for me, it didn't feel like a cylinder out. It felt like how I normally steer the car in Europe, because I had never felt where the car was actually, glued to the track, so to say, all the way down, because usually you had to put that steering input at the end and it kind of wiggled around, not because you had a cylinder out or because something was wrong, but just because that was how the car was driven on that track. While over here, it's very different. So it's not just about the performance, but I need to adapt all of my driving and kind of relearn to the tracks here. Feelings in the car that I knew exactly what it meant in Europe, and I just subconsciously just make input to it. It's not the same over here. So that's been one of my challenges, having to kind of relearn things that doesn't feel the same. It's the same with clutch setup. It doesn't feel the same over here in US when the clutch locks up. That doesn't just have to do with the tracks. Part of it, yes, but it's also obviously how the teams set up their cars, how the crew chief decides he wants to have the clutch setups, and that can differ between team to team. The car I had in Europe was obviously a lot older than the car I have over here. It's a different type of chassis. It responded differently to steering input, and I know that the first time I drove my car over here in US, the car, it reacts so quickly to steering input. It has such a fine-tuned, so to say, like steering wheel. And if you compare it to racing a bike, for example, on the bike you have a steering damper, and my car in Europe felt like you had a steering damper on fullest. So you still made really small adjustments, but you did it with a lot of force. You put a lot of force into every steering input you did with your steering yoke. Over here in US, if I were to steer this car the same way, I would be all over the track. You need to be so much more careful with so much more finer input. It feels like you had the steering damper on nothing, just the easiest, so to say. So that's how different the car feels. But also, obviously, with the teams, if you're looking at it over here, this is people's full-time job. Yes, I do not have a full-time team right now that are all in the shop working with us. We have 3 to 4 guys that are full-time in the shop, and the rest of the guys are so-called flying guys. So they come in and they work with us on the weekends, and they usually have day jobs that they go to in the week, and they come here. But obviously they're paid to be out here working with us. In Europe, nobody's paid.
I was going to ask you that because I know they're all volunteer.
And they sleep on air mattresses in the trailer. While over here, we're all staying at hotels. A lot of us are, if you're not driving to or from a race, you're flying in. While over in Europe, it's just different. Everybody does it just because of passion. And in a way, there's something really nice about that. I mean, the team I only had 4 guys. Over here, we have about 8 guys on the car, so it's different. But in Europe, I had 4 guys, and we were such a tight-knit team. They still did a turnaround in 50 minutes, and keep in mind that we do not take off ahead and bolt on a new one. Like, we actually took it off, looked at it, and checked everything, and like made sure that okay, this is ready to go again, and put it back. Like, some of the things that we did in Europe takes more time than it does over here. We are less people, but everybody did it just because they loved it. They wanted to win, and they believed in what we did. I'm not saying that the passion is any less here in US, but
you got a little more incentive.
Yeah, it's just different, so to say. And I think that's also while when you run a new personal best in Europe, or you run a first 7 in Europe, or whatever it is, the team is crying. Like, we are literally so happy because we know all the hard work that went into it and how long it took. Here in US, you can see someone set a new world record or, new personal best, but you will not see the teams jumping up and down on the starting line, being happy in the same way. I can kind of feel like that than in Europe, because in Europe, the small wins matter so much more. And another thing that I've noticed in Europe too is, when someone does something spectacular, like, I've been sitting behind cars waiting to start my car up, and I see someone else set a new record, new track record, or whatever it might be. I instantly start clapping my hands because I'm happy for the sport. You're happy that we are moving it forward. Someone is moving the needle in Europe. And if someone else is pushing that higher, you know that you need to push it a little bit more to go past it. And I think that mentality can be a little bit different in Europe. You're happy for the sport in another way because you know how important it is that we keeping this level very high. It's obviously, a lot of it is so much more track time. In Europe, we have about 6 to 8 events per year that you can run. Over here, you got more than 20, and then with test session and everything, you guys get so much more track data, so much more runs for the drivers, that obviously you will be naturally better. Like, that's how it should be.
And that's what makes your record over there so much more incredible, because of exactly that. You don't have the track time. You don't have the seat time. Yes. You don't have any of that you have over here in the US. And for you just to get in and be able to do that is just absolutely phenomenal.
I know also when I came over here to US, I talked to some of the new drivers here, and they basically said, oh my God, I don't have as much experience as you do. They told me. And I was like, hey, dude, I have 2 years in Europe in Top Fuel. That is as much as you tested last year. It puts it into perspective that a lot of the teams out here, they think that because we set all those records and won all those races and did all that in Europe means that we have hundreds and hundreds of rounds. I had less than 100 rounds under my belt coming into US. And a lot of these drivers, they run more than that in a year. So it's just definitely, just like you say, it puts it in perspective. And I think that that's something that shows how hard it is in Europe. A lot of the times also people tell me, hey, it was only 6 races in the championship. That made it easier. Well, the thing is, that's about the same races as you have in the countdown over here in US. No one says that the countdown is easy. The thing is also, sometimes when we have less car counts, instead of having 4 rounds on Sunday, we have 3 rounds. Yeah, but that also means that there's less points to pick up. So if you mess up in one race, let's say you lose first round on the first race of the year, you know how hard it's going to be to catch up. So obviously it all depends a little bit from year to year, how many good teams you have that race the full season. The year that we ran, we had incredibly hard competition. First of all, we had 3 cars just from our RF Motorsport team, and they all held the record at one point or another within the last 2 years. Like, that's how close and how good those cars are.
Yeah.
But then we also had several other teams that are really good cars, and a lot of the races that we won last year, we won on a couple of thousands by the finish line. So that's really how tough it is out there. And I think that a lot of people they don't see that, because they see that the car count is lower. They see that we don't have as many races, and they consider it being more easy. Well, in many times, I feel like that even makes it harder,
Well, you are an incredible inspiration to many, including myself. And I know that you've had people in your life that are great inspiration. Would you share with us a key mentor who has helped you be successful, and who's been the most influential person in your life?
Oh, that's a good question. I can't really say I've had one person my whole life. Obviously, I've had my dad that's always been around, and I feel like he's been the inspiration for me to start racing. And I know that he is a big part of why I am this competitive. When I started racing in junior dragster, you're 8 years old and you just want to go fast. That's all you want to do, that's what it's all about. But that actually changed for me very quickly, because when we started racing, it's never been just to have fun. Me and my dad, we studied other teams' time slips. We studied how they dial their car. We studied the weather. We studied, hey, this is your opponent for Sunday. How did he run before? How was his reaction times been? And I think that mindset, and getting that mindset at an early age, is definitely something that shaped me to be as competitive as I am today. So I would say that he's definitely one of my main reasons to why I am where I am today. But obviously, I haven't raced the same classes that he did. He was a big pro stock fan. He raced pro stock himself in the late 80s, and always been pro stock, pro mod. That's kind of been his classes where he's been working. While I have taken a lot of other routes, which means that in a way, it might have been easier for me to get into a pro stock car with, having my dad having all the knowledge and all the connections and everything. But that's not the road I choose, because I've been very strong-headed on what I wanted and the way I want to do it. I feel like there's been different people around me through different part of my life. Obviously, getting into Top Fuel, Rune Fjeld, that had the car that I ran, and his wife Lindsay, they have been such a big part of why I got to where I am right now. He's the calm himself. You won't see him budge in any type of stress or whatever it might be. And even though that was not something that he, planned to teach me, I feel like I always felt so calm around him, because he was always very, very calm. Even when I licensed, I had never sat in a Top Fuel car. We were licensing during COVID, and it was at an event called Bug Yam. This was not an event where it was prepped for a Top Fuel car. So that car got out of shape time I was in it. And he never clicked me off. He's always let me run myself and see. He's believed that I can do it. And that's something where I feel like if that was my car and I stood behind and I saw, this girl that has never sat in the car before get out of shape, I would probably be quite quick at hitting that bottom. But he didn't, because he trusted that I could fix it myself. I could make sure I got it. And I feel like that confidence that he showed in me, even though he didn't say it, made me feel like I be a great Top Fuel driver. And I think that looking back at it now, a lot of those things that he did throughout the years when I raced there, I don't think he might have done it on purpose, and I don't think I realized it at that time. But looking back at it now, I see how important that was for building my confidence in the car. Even, when you're green, you're going to make mistakes. There's going to be stuff that, you might overdrive the car, or you might not stage as shallow as you want, or whatever it might be. But instead of down on me when I did something wrong, he let me know when I did something right, or he just came and told me that next time do this, because, if you do that, it will be quicker, instead of letting me know that, hey, it was slower because he did it wrong. He knew that I wanted to be quicker. He knew that I wanted to be better. So I feel like it was very motivating for me to work with him. And also, since he had over 40 years experience in nitro racing, and he has, helped some of the best drivers in the world come up through the ranks. So I knew that working with him was a big privilege for me, obviously. And I think that that's more what it's been like. Throughout my years, I haven't had a specific mentor that I have called my mentor, or someone that have been around me to pick me up. But looking back at it, I've realized that I've had people around me that have inspired me or mentored me more than I realized, right, without actually having it be called that, so to say.
Absolutely. Please share with us a difficult challenge, a failure, an obstacle that you faced, whether in personal life or business, and tell us how you overcame that situation. What did you learn?
Well, there's a lot of ups and downs in racing. In racing, you need to learn how to be good at losing, because the thing is, you will lose more than you win, no matter how good you are. Our 2023 season, when we won all but one races, that doesn't happen. That's very, very, very hard to get there. And when you get there, you've had so many years of losing behind you that it takes a long time to get to those winning streaks. And when you are there, you never know when they're going to come again. So you definitely need to take that in. But for example, when I started racing the bike, so I had never raced bikes before. Really tough challenge for me. Obviously, there's a lot of bike to handle over there. And when I started, I need to learn everything from how do you do a burnout with a bike. It was such a small stuff that for many of the people racing in that class, they had done it for years and years on end, and coming up to other bike ranks. And they were just a natural bike racer, so to say, where I had to work really hard to get it. I was also one of the only girls to race in that class. There had been some girls racing or running a race here and there, but never been a girl that I won a race, never been a girl that I had, great success in that class. So there was a lot of people that told me that I couldn't do it or that I shouldn't do it, and that maybe that class wasn't where I belong. You have seen a lot of women come up through the pro stock bike ranks. So that's what a lot of them told me. Go and race a pro stock bike and hey, you'll be safer with a wheelie bar, or, all this. It was some tough years because obviously we struggled a lot the first year. We had built our own bike. It was the first bike that we had built completely from scratch ourselves. I was weighing so much less than my boyfriend did. So we couldn't use, the same setups. We were struggling with high wheelies, and it was just a tough time for us to kind of get a hang on that bike. I had a lot of high wheelies, and I think those years made me really strong because I knew I could do it. For me, I saw improvements all the time. And for me, that's been the most important, that I want to see that I'm doing better and better. Obviously, coming in and doing something when you're new, you don't expect that you're going to go ahead and win right away. Right. But as long as I can see that I'm improving constantly, it still keeps me on track. And that's how I felt. And we were honest and said that we want to give it 3 years. And by 3 years, I want to feel like I can run with the best of the best. And the third year, we actually ended up winning the championship. And we won our first races that year. I was the first woman to ever win in that class and to win a championship in that class. And I was the youngest person to ever win a championship in that class, which to me was very, very cool to see. And I think that be more than I realized at the time, because obviously it showed me that, hey, people thought this was impossible. I didn't think it was impossible, but I knew how big of a challenge it was. And I proved myself that I could do it. I proved other people wrong. And when I came into Top Fuel, I had never raced a Top Fuel car either. I mean, I had raced a super comp, which is so completely different. You can't even,
is. Yeah, I'm a super comp pilot. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I got into the Top Fuel car, I experienced the same feelings again, that, hey, this is new. I do not know exactly what I'm doing. I'm trying to get the hang of everything. It's very overwhelming when you get into something like that. And the difference in Europe there that can also be mentioned, that's some people, when I came over here, they couldn't wrap their head around. Over here, when you license or go testing, you rent a track and you're by yourself. I mean, people don't have to know where you are. It's not live streamed. A lot of times other teams doesn't even know you're licensing. When we licensed, it was 50,000 people in the grandstand, and it was live streamed for 20,000 people at the same time. Oh. So when you mess up, it's not like you can say, hey, it was my first time, but nobody saw that. No. Like, everybody
you have to do it during the event.
There are no test sessions. If you're running a test session in Europe, that means that you're going to a big event and you are there for the show. So that is our test sessions. So it's a lot more pressure on a situation like that. And it was the same thing when I started racing the bike. The first race I had, it was a European Championship event. It was 35,000 people in the grandstand, and I pulled the biggest wheelie of my life. There's no way to go to hide and try to figure this out by yourself when nobody's watching. And I think that has also a lot of things throughout the road, because obviously now coming over to US, it's kind of cool to be able to do some test sessions sometimes when there's not that many people in the grandstand. But honestly, if it were, I don't think I would care. Like, for me, when I debuted in Brainerd, I could not care less how many people watching on TV or were on the grandstands, because my mindset from racing in Europe, I think, is different than for many of the drivers coming up through the ranks over here. So I think just starting out on the bike scene, I think, was the best thing I could ever done, because if I would have taken the natural route and done, super comp, maybe alcohol car, and then going up to Top Fuel, I don't think I would have had that really big challenge that shaped me in the way it did, where when I came into Top Fuel in Europe, I was like, hey, I've done this before. I've been the rookie. I've been the underdog. I've been the one that nobody thought could do it. And hell, I did it. So I can do it. And we did. And now it's the exact same thing again. I feel the exact same feeling being here in US. A lot of people think that because I won a championship in Europe, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to be really great at what I'm doing. Hell, this car is so different from the car I drove in Europe. It has a closed canopy. It's a complete different chassis. The car reacts differently. The tracks are differently. The tune-up is different. there's so many things in this car that I'm struggling with compared to the car I ran in Europe. People don't even know. So feel the exact same feelings again, where I feel like people are looking at me and basically telling me that, hey, like you're not doing as well as you should, or, they're trying to knock you down. And it is hard. Like right now at this point, I am struggling with the fact that I thought I would be better than I am at the moment. But the thing that still keeps me very happy and motivated with this is the fact that I do not feel 100% confident in the car yet, not the way that I did in Europe.
Right.
And the thing with that is when you're that confident, like I was in the car in Europe, where I feel like I know exactly what the car wants. I know how to drive this thing. I am great at what I'm doing. I know how to cut a light. Like I feel like I'm one with the car. When you go into a race and you have that feeling, you basically tell yourself that as long as I'm doing my job and as long as the team has given me the car that they can give me, I'll win. And you don't have to worry about a thing. But when you're in the car that I am in right now, and I'm still trying to find that, and we're still performing with the best of the best in the world, we're right there with them. Absolutely. I know that by the time I find that feeling in this car, I will be dangerous. And that is something that makes me happy, because if I felt the way I did in Europe, and I felt like, hell, I am driving my ass off, I'm the best I can be in this thing, and I still wasn't good enough, that would beat me down. But I feel like there's so much potential there that people don't know yet, that I haven't been able to tap into. We're still, almost every race now, we have changed something, and it could be the clutch pedal, it could be the seat, it could be the angle of the belts, it could be the brakes. Like we have changed things all the time to make me feel more confident in the car. But people don't know that from the outside. They don't know what changes we are making, and they don't know how much that impacts your driving in the car or your feeling in the car. Right. But the thing is that when we find that combination where it feels like it's great and I can get the runs needed to dial that in, man, I feel like we're going to be right there with the best. So
you will be. I have no doubt. I know, like I said, you and I have known each other for a couple of years, and watching you in Europe and talking to you all this time and building the friendship that we have, and just knowing who you are now personally, there's no doubt in my mind. You are beyond dangerous and you are lethal. And when everything gets dialed in, everybody better watch out, because you're going to kick their ass. So.
Yeah, I feel like secret ace up my sleeve there that people don't understand. It's obviously hard for me at this time with people, telling me that I'm not good enough. And it's hard to read those comments. It's hard to hear something like that. But I also know that, but you haven't seen me at the top of my potential yet. Right. So just wait,
Yeah, that's right. Well, and I will tell you, what you said about, having people around. When I went and decided to get my super comp license, it was in March of 2021, and we were still within the COVID issues, and they were trying to run events. So they weren't allowing you to do your licensing by yourself. So I had to do actually my licensing in front of people. Yeah. At an event in Las Vegas, one of the biggest events. Yeah. And, I can tell you, I was so nervous that I was going to look so stupid, and I'd never run a dragster ever in my entire life. And I got my license that day, that first day. I did everything as good as I possibly could. And I only had 6 runs down the track total and got my license, but it was in front of God and everybody.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. And I remember coming over here a couple of years ago, and I talked to some of the drivers over here, and they talked about having, tested for 4 or 5 events before they even started with their license. And then they started, and I asked them, okay, so was this like Monday after race day? And they said, yeah, it was. And I told them we have to do it at an event, like with people watching. And they had a hard time like phantoming that. They were like, I would not want to do that. And for us, there's no options. It's not about, if you're this team or if you're in this part of the world or if you have this type of money, there will be a test session for you. Yeah. No, like it's just not an option for us. We just you gotta get comfortable being uncomfortable, basically.
Well, and it was interesting too, because I did it all in one day, because that's all that they were allowing. Yeah. So I did, like I said, I'd never driven a dragster ever in my entire life, and did 5 practice runs. And that was during, you have to do the steps of the different licensing in front of people. And that was during the daytime when it was just, hot as hell out in Las Vegas. And then, but by the time that I was able to do my final run to get my license, it was nighttime, and 9:00 at night and everybody was gone. So it was totally, and the car felt completely different running at night than it did in the day.
Yeah. But all of those things are good things to learn, though. I feel like, sometimes when it doesn't feel like it's the most comfortable or it doesn't feel like it's easy, that's actually when you grow most, both as a driver and as a person. So I would say a lot of those things that I went through in Europe has prepared me to be a better racer out here and be, have tougher skin, basically. I feel like a lot of those things taught me a lot of valuable lessons that I don't know where I would have learned otherwise,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have accomplished so much in your young life. But I want to ask you, what would you still like to accomplish in this next chapter?
Well, obviously, I want to be a world champion. I know a lot of people say European world champion. That's not really the same for me, though. I want to be an NHRA world champion. So obviously, I'm super proud of the European championship that we have. Our team gave it their all. I mean, that year, I feel like we were on a roll that I've never seen before. The amount of teamwork that was put into that season and how we worked together. I have a fantastic team over here that I really, really love, but we're still not on that level when it comes to teamwork. And I think it was because when we saw we could do it and we were on such a high of knowing that, hey, if we just all do everything we can, we'll do it. It was like nothing could go wrong. And it was incredibly cool to see. I feel like we saw that last year with like Austin Prock and his team. They came out swinging and then you could not knock them down. And that's the feeling we had during that season. And I know we can do that over here too. Like, I know we can find that. I need to find some more confidence. I think it's hard when you're at the top and then it almost feels like you're taking a step back. You're going and you have to redo everything again. You know you can do it. You just can't physically do it right now. There's so many things that needs to come into play. And I was so lucky in Europe that I jumped into a car that instantly felt great for me. It felt like I was, fit like a glove, and the car, I feel like I had such good control of it and everything just worked. This car over here, it's a shorter car. I am more cramped together. We're trying to find, how I want to sit comfortably. With it being a canopy car, the feeling is, like I said, so differently. The view is different. You can't really see the same way as you could in an open cockpit car. And when you're talking about learning things and having habits, that's basically the thing. You drive a car for so long, and all of these good habits that you have of how to drive it, they might not work in this car I'm driving right now. So I need to relearn, and relearning is so much harder than learning from the beginning. And that is something that I'm kind of working on right now. But yeah, I want to be a world champion. I mean, obviously there's a lot of small steps before that. We want to start by qualifying solidly in the top half of the field. We want to have a number one qualifier at some point. We want to win our first event, obviously. But eventually I want to win a championship, and I want to keep chasing more championships. I am not a one and done kind of girl. Like, I want to be out here for years now. We want to build a legacy, and I want people to remember what we did. I see so much potential in our team, and also with the my crew chief, John Schaefer, who built this team and this car. And I know that he doesn't feel like he's found 100% of the potential of this car either. We have new stuff on it for this year, and we're only 2 races in, and we're already seeing better graphs and better numbers, but we're still working on trying to find a little more of that edge to be able to run with the top guys out here. And we've been losing rounds on a couple of thousands for several events now, and it's heartbreaking. And you know what it is in racing too, it's you can be the best that you go out there and you race someone. Like last race I raced Justin Ashley. When he raced against me, he had the best reaction time of race day. I had my worst of the weekend, which makes it look completely awful. He did not have that good of a reaction time for the rest of the day, and none other did either. And I saw so many drivers that had worse reaction times than I did win their races that day. But it's about timing. Sometimes you can be the best version of yourself, but it still doesn't work because someone else might come out there and then all of a sudden they have a car that looks like a rocket ship, or it's the other way around. And you kind of need a little bit of luck in that way. But I know that when we get everything to come together, we will be able to knock out those guys too that that have the quickest cars out there, the best reaction times. I know that our car can be quicker. I can be better on the tree. And when it all comes together, I think the win is going to taste even sweeter. Right now you can be pissed off that you didn't win, and
exactly.
you see someone else that
bitter taste, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it just, you do need these times, when you're feeling like you're down and you're feeling like you're working your butt off and it's not proving yet, you kind of need to have that feeling, because when it turns around and it's going to start working, you're going to appreciate it so much more. And that's what I'm trying to tell myself right now.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about a special vehicle. Tell us about a truly special vehicle in your life. Share a great memory or experience that you had with that vehicle.
Oh, I have several, obviously. I mean, my race bike was also one of my most special bikes. It was called Lucky 13.
Lucky 13.
I raced with the number 13, and the bike was called Lucky. When I sold it, it was the vehicle basically that I had the most success in my racing career with. And it was a time where I broke so many barriers, just both for myself, but in racing in general. So when I sold it, I had the logo, the Lucky 13 logo, tattooed on my leg. And it basically says to embrace what others fear, because that's a little bit what Lucky 13 is. They will always have a special place in my heart. And then in 2023, I signed with Dodge Europe as a Dodge brand ambassador, actually the first one that Dodge ever had. And they made me a custom Ida Zetterström car that looked identical to my Top Fuel dragster, the same red, white, and black colors, and the same paint scheme as my Top Fuel had, and had my name on it and Dodge on it, and they delivered it to me in Stockholm, Sweden. And that was kind of one of those pinch me moments, when you get to drive around in your own last call Hellcat, and it's just one of those dream cars basically. And it not only was a great car, but it actually matched our race car perfectly. And I think that's also one of the cars that it will definitely always be a special moment for me.
Oh, absolutely. Well, here on Cars Yeah, we have a little game called Car Psychology, to where we get in your head.
Okay.
If you were a car, what would you be? And more importantly, why?
Good question. I would be a super street bike. I feel like I could be a little unpredictable. They certainly are. They're unpredictable and wild, but also when you get them to work perfectly, it's one of the smoothest rides of your life. It's funny because when you do get in a perfect run, I've had times where my team come and they honk their horn and they're yelling, and we ran a new record. And you look at them and you're like, what? On that pass? Because it just felt so smooth. But then there's also runs when you're feeling like you're battling, being on the back of a lion running down the savannah. That's basically how it feels like on those things. So I'm not saying I have mood swings, but maybe that's what I'm saying.
We don't have that as women or men. None of us have that, do we? So that's funny.
When I got that bike first time, it actually said my next mood swing is in 6 seconds. Just because obviously after a run like that, your mood will shift.
Absolutely. Well, let's take the ultimate drive. I am writing a blank check for this ultimate drive with no limitations. Have fun with this. If I could wave a magic wand, and I'm paying for it, and arrange for you to go on the ultimate drive, what vehicle would you be in, and whom would it be with?
So we have a 68 Camaro in the garage back at home that we're putting a LS twin turbo engine in. It would be that one because it's been a project that's been going on for many years and one of my dream cars. I would take it to Drag Week. Definitely, I've always wanted to do Drag Week, so it would have to come over here to US, and I would bring my boyfriend because we've been working on that car together for so many years. I would be driving, so he would.
I was going to say, who would be driving?
Yeah, no, I want to drive it. But no, we've been working on that car for a long time, and it kind of came to a stop when we moved over here to US. So we're hoping we would be able to get it over to US soon and finish it and go do Drag Week one of these times. So I'm hoping that dream will actually come true one day. But no, that's something we've been trying to plan for many years, and I think it would be awesome.
Well, that would be really cool. And I want to be there to see that.
For sure. Yeah, I think it would be really nice.
What are some of the ways you've helped others or given back? This could be in your life or your career field.
Oh, that's a good question. No, I ought to help, the next generation. For me, the junior dragsters has always been very close to my heart because that's where I started. And I've kind of felt for many years that when I grew up, I know we talked about role models and we talked about mentors, and obviously there's been people I've been looking up to when I've gone through the ranks, but it wasn't until I was a grown up and was in the big classes where I felt like I had people around me where I kind of felt like I got that mentoring side of it. I wish that there were more of that when I was a junior dragster driver. So with JCM Racing, we do have we have a junior dragster program where we have drivers throughout the divisions over here in US, and we're trying to help them not just on a financial side, because I feel like there's a lot of families out there that might have that, where it's, hey, we can cover the kids racing when they do juniors. We have the money for that.
Right.
But then they stop when they grow older. That was my biggest issue. When you're a kid and you're racing and you go into the junior ranks and your parents are paying for it and you're going to all these races, it's all fun and games. But then when you notice that, hey, my passion is so strong, I want to keep racing, but you don't know how to do it and you don't have anyone around you to ask, how do I find sponsors? How do I financially cover this? Or how do I talk on camera? How do I do all this? That is something that the JCM Junior Development Program wants to touch on, not just giving the kids money to go racing, but we want to give them the tools. So it's not as much about the money side, it's more about the connections to some of our sponsors where they might get help with some of the tools they need, or impact racing suits, or a helmet, some VP racing fuel for the car. But then it's also the time where Ali, our publicist, sits down with them and talks about, hey, this is how you should talk in an interview. This is how you should talk about your sponsors. This is how you should think about representing yourself. I mean, we see some people that think that if you get attention, it's always good. No, it's not always good. You need to think about how you present yourself. You need to think about how you talk about your sponsors and yourself and the image that you're putting out there. And a lot of the things is also, you might be just 14 or 16 years old, but if you're not going about this the right way, you might burn bridges that you don't even realize. And a lot of the times it's also about talking to these kids. I mean, I've had kids in the Junior Dragster Development Program come up to me saying that, hey, I won this many races last year. I had some other kids bullying me because they didn't like it. And I mean, that's part of it. I'm sorry to say, but when you're doing great out here, it's not like everybody is your friend. I struggled a lot with that when I came in racing the bikes, for example. In the beginning, we were just a competitor trying to qualify, and everybody was so friendly. Everybody wanted to help us out. But by the time we started beating other people, we started winning races, some of them, they were not as nice anymore. Some of them were almost cruel. And there could be people that said mean things, or all of a sudden they didn't think that you belonged there. And I think that that's also some of the things that I want to talk to these juniors about. And that's something we did last year. I explained to them that you need to get a tough skin. And it's not about, I hear a lot of people spin it where it's, hey, if you're a girl out here, you need to have tough skin. No, if you're out here, you need to have tough skin. Yeah, period. Not just being a girl, and not just here. I mean, this is in life in general. If you are doing things that stick out, you're doing things that different. It's not just drag racing. I've seen this. I mean, when I worked as an electrician, do you think there were many girls? No, we weren't that many. When I worked in management, I wasn't only one of the only female. I was the youngest in my management position at that work. And there will be people that doesn't like it. And that's just the way of life. Like, if you want to keep following the stream and you want to go with what everybody else is doing, you might have an easy going where people might not say anything. But if you want to have the higher work positions, or you want to do something that's different or that stands out, or even good or bad, people will talk. So I think that that's part of what we want to do with these juniors, to prepare them a little bit for just how it is in a competitive environment, and prepare them for when you need to find your own sponsors. How do you approach them? For me, it's been very important to teach people that this is not about going out and selling logos on your race car or saying, hey, do you want to help me? No, this is companies out here that are making money and they're smart about how they're doing it, they don't want to give you money. But you need to find a way how you can make them money and you guys can work together. It's a partnership, and that is what it's all about. And it doesn't matter if you're looking for a couple of thousands to raise your super comp or if you're looking for, millions of dollars to raise a Top Fuel operation. You need to find a return on investment so that the money they put in is less than the money they get back. That's how you do it. Otherwise, they might as well put their money in the bank and get interest for them. They're not going to give it to you. And it might be a hard lesson for some people to hear, but the earlier they understand that and they understand how to work with sponsors, how that when you have a presentation, it's not 80% about you and what you're doing in your car and then saying, hey, this is what I can do for you. No, it's 80% about how you can help their company. You want to try and realize their goals and understand where their key markets are and how you can work with them. 20% can be about you and what you're doing to get them to understand about you. But a lot of that is what we from JCM want to do. We don't want to just help the kids that are out there racing now. We want to make sure that these kids are part of the next generation. And I love the fact that JCM wants to do this and that they want to put up these different programs and have these different meetings with these kids. Because I personally think that I would have maybe gotten to where I am right now quicker if I would have had someone that pointed me in the right direction or helped me with the tools needed, not the money, because we need the money, but you need to learn how to find the money yourself. That's just how it is out here. But if you have the tools and understand how to build a marketing deck, how important it is to go and attend all these events and sign autographs or have the meet and greets or whatever it is, you're going to reach your goals quicker. So that's what we are in the process of helping out with for the sport.
Well, and that's what I love about you, because you are self-made. I mean, even though your dad raced, you didn't come from money.
Yeah.
And you and I have always been aligned on this and not preaching it enough. I can't say it enough. It's about the analytics. It's about the numbers, the return on investment, the numbers.
Absolutely. And the quicker you understand that and the quicker you can get the mindset of how you can help these companies. Because honestly, when I looked for sponsors in Europe, I didn't even call it sponsors. I called it partners.
They are partners because sponsors is a bad word now.
Yeah, sponsors is a correct word when used correctly, but too many people use it wrong. And if you use it wrong, that's hurt. It's hurt what sponsorship is all about. And gone are the days where you sell a logo on the car. And I feel like when you're actually working with these companies, you are basically working for them. Like you're basically an employee for them. And that's something that people need to understand. A lot of people think that when you've signed this contract and the money is in your hands, you think that, if I just put a logo on the car, all is good.
No.
If you do that, and I don't care how big this contract is, if it's a couple of thousands or a couple of millions, you will lose them just as quickly as you got them. Like you need to have this plan in place, and that goes from both directions. There needs to be someone at that company that picks up what you're doing, and you need to have that close contact to make sure that the return on investment is met. And obviously, we're starting this very young with these kids, but I just want them to understand, because honestly, when I was 16, I did not understand all of this because nobody has taught me. That is something that I had to learn myself, and it took me years and years to figure all this out and to get to where I am today. And I have had no one to help me in that regard with like everything. Obviously, I had my dad around that had been in racing, but also the sponsorships that were made in the late 80s is not the same type of contracts that are made anymore. It changes so quickly. Yeah.
I just talked about this a couple of days ago on the JP Emerson show when he interviewed me, and I explained that you have to look at that it's not your money, but you have to treat it like it's your money, and you have to care for every single penny, because that penny goes to someone's livelihood, whether it's yours or the partner or their families or the crew. Every single penny counts because it affects everyone.
Yeah. And what people also need to think about is a lot of the times people seem to think that, hey, this company is making this much money, so they should be able to give me a handout because they have all this money. Exactly. How do you think they made that money? It's because they're smart with their investments and they're smart with their business. It's not because they're giving handouts to left and right. So if you have that mindset going into a discussion where you think that, hey, this company has made a lot of money, they probably want to give me some.
Yeah.
No, you're not getting a penny. The thing is that you need to think about the fact that the person you're sitting there talking to, they're smart and they will not be doing something that's not good for business. So what you need to figure out is, how can I be good for their business? How can I make them more revenue? And if you haven't figured that out yet, sure, you can absolutely have a meeting where you don't pitch what you want to do, where you have a meeting when you're trying to figure it out, where you're trying to ask them, where are your key markets? Where are your marketing goals? Like, what are you trying to do? Do you have new products that you're pushing? What is it that you are working mostly on for this year and, let's say the next 3 coming years? But after that, you need to sit down and look at that and figure out what it is you're offering them. Because if you're just calling them and basically saying that you're looking to invest in your race team,
give me some money.
With that.
Yeah. No, you need to be the problem solver for a problem. You need to understand their business and be a problem solver.
100%. And I think that's something that we've gotten good at when we're working with it. And obviously, it's taken years on years, and that's what we want this next generation to figure out, how they can be the problem solvers for these companies so that they can actually invest in their racing and keep going, because we want to see the next generation continue to race out here. And I don't want them to have a several year gap in their racing career that I did either. I want them to be able to hit the ground running when they get out of junior dragsters. But to do that, they either need to have money of them or money themselves, or figure out how to work in a right way with businesses. So
is there a great book that you've read or an article or something that you've watched that you believe others could learn from?
I do, but it's in Swedish. I actually have a book that I read from Petter Stordalen. He's actually a Norwegian. I'm not sure if you can find this in English. I can't even remember what the name of the book is. I just remember that Petter Stordalen has made 3 books, and 2 of them, when I read, I related to a whole lot. He's also self-made, grew up and as a kid basically selling strawberries at the, out on these, what do you call it? Not fields, but basically big places in Norway. And then he's worked up to big empire. He owns several hotel chains in all of the Nordic countries. And it was just very inspiring for me to read his books and his mindset and how he believed himself, because a lot of the times he went into a meeting and he didn't have exactly all the credits that he might have said he did, but he believed that he could do it. And every time he got the deal done, he delivered in the way that he had to. And I think that's something that we could all get a little bit of because a lot of the times you might know that you can do it, but then when you're starting to struggle, basically like I feel right now, you're starting to question yourself and you're starting to feel like, it's hard. We struggle out here. It's not just, rainbows and sunshine. It's definitely hard being a race car driver, especially when you're with the best in the world and you're working so hard on everything you're doing. And I feel like I work all the time. I work out, I try to eat right, I try to do everything I can to have an edge out there. The problem is that everybody else is doing the same. So it doesn't make you special,
Can you give our listeners a final parting words of wisdom and advice about life or business? Do you have a favorite quote or mantra that has meaning to you?
I have quite a few tattoos that people don't see. A lot of them are quotes and mantras that I kind of live by. I do have a tattoo that goes down my spine that says, work hard, make your own luck. Because I hear so many people when I am in the situation I am right now, or, earlier won the championship or had the bike or whatever it is, and they say, oh my God, you're so lucky. And the thing is that the more luck I found, the harder I have worked. Those two go hand in hand. I don't think that you just show up and it's going to be handed to you. You need to work really hard. I believe out here, and this is something that not everybody agrees with me on, but I hear people out here that say that they do it to inspire others or they do it to inspire the next generation. I am not like that. It might sound wrong. Obviously, I'm super happy if I am inspiring others. I want to be a role model for sure. But I am doing this because it absolutely sets my heart on fire, and I can't imagine doing anything else. This is my dream. I am not doing this for anybody else. I am doing this because it is, I can't picture myself doing anything else. It is what makes me go up in the morning, and it's everything I think of, and it's what pushes me to be better as a person and as a driver and everything I'm doing. And for me, if I did it to prove someone else wrong, or if I did it for some other reason, I don't feel like I would have this. I wouldn't have the energy to do it, honestly.
Right, exactly.
If it wasn't for myself. So I believe that if you want to be out here, you want to be a race car driver, or you want to be whatever it is in life, something that you know is going to take everything you got to get to there. Make sure that it's something that you really want. Don't do it for your mom or your dad. Don't do it to prove someone else wrong. Don't do it because it looks cool or whatever it might be. Do it because it absolutely sets your heart on fire. Because otherwise, I do not believe that you will find the success that you want out there. You need to love it. You need to want it. In my mind, that's what's going to set you apart from the rest, you know.
And I couldn't agree more. And finally, tell us the best way that our listeners can learn more about you, your website, your social media links, LinkedIn.
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn. Yep, Ida Zetterström. Same on Facebook, Ida Zetterström. Make sure that you look for that blue check mark because there's a lot of fake pages going around. Yeah. So double check for that. Same on YouTube. I am Ida. It's Ida Zetterström Drag Racing on YouTube. I am not super active there, but I do have quite a few vlogs from our championship years if people want to catch up on that. Instagram is my strongest platform. That's where I do the most. That's where I share my day-to-day stuff. It's dragster FIA over there, but if you search Ida Zetterström, it will pop up too. Also, blue check mark over there. There might be some fake ones, but there's where you can see all my day-to-day on my stories, and I share all of our travel and everything.
Listeners, that is Ida Zetterström. That's IDA, and last name is Zetterström, and I know I'm not pronouncing it as beautifully as it is. It's Zetterstrom. And we'll have all that information on the links or the links on the notes page on the carsyeah.com. Ida, thank you for being so generous with your time and sharing your experiences with our listeners. And I'm so glad we finally got together. And I so much look forward to watching you and continue watching you. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. And I'm happy we finally got it working out.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing you soon. And on that note, until we talk again, I will see you down the road.
Thank you so much for joining us here today on Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find today's guest show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Fill Her Up. It's an ebook filled with gorgeous photos of fuel filler fun, including quotes from our inspiring automotive enthusiasts. While you're on the website, sign up for weekly blogs and a whole lot more. Download your copy today, and Ginger will see you next time here on Cars Yeah.